Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're enjoying your day so far, and with the CDL 2021 fast approaching, questions have been raised as to which teams for this season may be the ones that end up being overrated. In Call of Duty League 2020, there were a number of teams that exceeded expectations, but a number of teams also that fell shy of expectations, and two in particular in the Seattle Surge and OpTic Gaming Los Angeles, which came nowhere near what was expected of them. This season, will there be similar teams? What will those teams be, and how can we potentially predict what that's going to be over the coming minutes? Intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. And as we see here, it looks like CDL may be just around the corner as Atlanta FaZe say a glimpse into the world of Atlanta FaZe media days. They're well raining down the cash right here. Arcitys, Simp, aBeZy and Cellium of course. And this is one of the teams we're going to talk about in the coming minutes, right? Because of course they're not necessarily overrated by any means, but this team comes into this season expected really. A lot of people are talking about this squad going to be the biggest competitors to pretty much everyone in the entire league. Going to be the team to beat, going to be the scariest squad on paper at least, and well, they come from last season with the deadliest SMG duo in the game in Simp and aBeZy. Cellium, of course, they're maybe the best flex player in the game, one of the biggest Icemen, biggest clutch factors in the entire game. Then they bring in Arcitys, a player they've won the World Championship with, at least Simp and aBeZy, as their main assault rifle leadership type figure, one of the best players the last several years as well. This team is clearly expected to do phenomenal things, and if they, well, fall short of greatness, then, well, clearly you could argue they've been overrated, and the pressure is on them to prove that they have made the right choice here. And with other teams like Dallas, with OpTic Chicago, with Los Angeles Thieves gunning for the #1 spot, FaZe certainly have a fair bit to prove this season. But I think saying they're overrated is maybe a little bit too far, but certainly the opportunity there is on the table. As you can see, which CDL jerseys would you buy if they looked like this? Thought this was pretty cool. Credit to Liam UK right here, but yeah, the FaZe ones, all this stuff kind of looks like football jerseys where you've got the logo of the sponsor in the middle and stuff like this. But yeah, certainly I hope at least we get some announcement relatively soon as to when these well, the new CDL 2022 stuff is actually going to be available, right? Because the teams get to design them themselves this season. It's not just the CDL doing a copy and paste job of every single logo and just putting it on with some different colors, some different backgrounds and stuff. It's basically just the same thing. Every single piece of merchandise last season was CDL made and was just exactly the same thing with a different logo slapped on it. This season, thankfully, the teams do, I believe, have some more creative license, and well, hopefully we're going to get some banging pieces of merchandise this coming season, but no announcements yet when this is actually going to be released or when anything is going to be available for purchase, but some cool concept designs right here. So this was the start of last season. Before last season kicked off, this was after the launch weekend on the 30th of January. ESPN did their power rankings based on, well, how the coaches ranked the teams. Now, in the preseason, people had these slightly different, right? Like Seattle Surge, by a lot of people, were going to be considered like a top 6 team in the game. OpTic Gaming Los Angeles, people were considering they could be like top 3. They could be right up there with their upper echelons of the game. However, that didn't happen at all. Just after the first weekend, people realized that, look, Seattle OpTic Gaming are nowhere near the pace that people expected of them early on, but a few teams were certainly performing as expected. Paris Legion even up here at 5. So some teams definitely underrated in the preseason, some teams definitely overrated in the preseason, and I'm sure that will happen again. Maybe it won't happen to the same degree as it happened last season with OpTic Gaming Los Angeles just being tragic and Seattle Surge somehow managing to be even worse, but well, the upcoming season, certainly there's going to be some teams that are underrated and overrated as they usually are. So last season, I mean, look, we had TJ, we had Kenny, we had Slasher, we had Dashy, and we had JCap at the start of the season. It goes horribly wrong. The team doesn't get on. The roles are clashing. The personalities are clashing. They don't even really practice the game for a while because they believe there's going to be some sort of major overhaul from Infinity Ward, which never comes, of course, because the competitive focus was not exactly their top priority. Then they bring in Chino. They actually do make a grand final. Then they swap him out once again and bring in Hollow and Drazah for the end of the season, move to Texas, and have a decent result, all things considered, at the World Championship. And from where this team was expected to be, especially based off their Black Ops 4 season from 100 Thieves, for example, this was just nowhere near what we expected of them. Seattle Surge as well were also like the major team that really fell off the pace and where people were expecting it to be. At the time, we had Enabler and Karma in the team, of course, the only 3-time world champion on LAN, now retired just because of how bad this team was. But yeah, it was Octane, Slacked, aBeZy, Enabler, and Karma at the time. They swapped out for substitutes Panda and Proto, which, well, didn't really help at all, and they were pretty much the worst team the entire season, with the exception of the Los Angeles Grillers. So going into this season then, which are the teams which are going to do a similar thing, right? And I'll do a proper power rankings video in a few days' time, but pretty much most of these teams, we have a decent idea of the expectations of the community for how good they should do on paper. So which teams are actually going to perform above that, which teams are actually going to perform below that, right? And there's certainly a few teams here which you can argue go either way. I mean, Los Angeles Grillers, for example, were tragic last season. They completely overhauled their roster, and then I think this season most people still have them as like top 12, like probably the bottom team in the league as it stands right now, at least on paper, right? And of course, things can certainly change, but Los Angeles Guerrillas can't really be overrated, given the fact that, well, they're pretty much at the bottom of the pile. So these kind of discussions are certainly related to how good these teams are expected to do. I mean, if Atlanta FaZe don't win an event, that would be a pretty big disaster from them. But if Paris Legion don't win an event, it's pretty much expected, right? So that's the mindset we're going to move forward with right here. And these are three that I've highlighted as potentially overrated teams. We'll see what happens. The first one being Atlanta FaZe, right? And this might be a difficult one to justify, but at the end of the day, as I talked about at the start of the video, this team was put together to win everything, to dominate the World Championship, to dominate the entire season long. And so some people have said, I mean, Maven, for example, saying he reckons these guys are going to crush this entire season and not look back at all. However, in some early season play, I mean, Dallas Empire right now maybe look like the best team in online scrims. FaZe have been getting, they've certainly been going back and forth a fair bit with OpTic Chicago, but OpTic Chicago now, supposedly their internet issues may even be resolved from a few days ago, when now, of course, Formal and Dashy are based in Texas. You've also got Los Angeles Thieves up there snapping at the heels of guys like Atlanta FaZe as well to be a top team. So if FaZe aren't a #1 team in the game, you could even argue they're overrated in some aspect, and if they end up being like a top 3, top 4 team, then well, they probably significantly are overrated from their preseason expectations, you could say. Personally, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think these guys are certainly still going to be winning titles, but if you are expected, I suppose, to be the #1 team in the game, anything less than that, the pressure is on, right, to prove that paying these guys whatever extortionate salary they are on is actually going to be worth it. So a few other teams here, Dallas Empire, you could also say they're maybe somewhat overrated if we go back to LAN, right, and well, they've been, let's say they just dominate the online scene, then we go to LAN, you could have that discussion, and of course they are the world champions, right, but I don't think that these guys will do worse than really where they're expected to do, and I think a few of these other teams along here actually might be somewhat underrated. I think the Florida Mutineers, people probably don't rate them necessarily quite with the upset potential that they do actually have. Royal Ravens, I think, most people consider this team to probably be middle of the pack, and they probably will end up being around there, but if anything, they've maybe been looking slightly better in scrims than some of the other teams we're going to look at over the last several weeks. Los Angeles Guerrillas are expected to be pretty much bottom of the pack, at which point they can't really be overrated, and Los Angeles Thieves as well, given the fact that their squad last season was just so tragic, I think a lot of people maybe are overlooking the potential of this team, because when a team with Slasher and Kenny and TJ and Temp, of course, in this squad has so much firepower, but when a team with Slasher on it actually gets on, wants to win, has the will and the drive to improve and to compete, and they probably will do, playing for 100 Thieves, and also with a team they seem to get along with, well, that is a very scary thing, right? And Slasher's teams with that kind of attitude always compete at some point for a championship. I think Los Angeles Thieves will be no exception, and given their poor performance last season, if anything, Los Angeles Thieves might be better than some people expect. I think most people are thinking maybe top 4, top 6, but in reality, they could well be a top 3, top 2 team, at least at times, and mix it up for championships. So if a few of these teams may be slightly underrated, then by extension, a few of the other teams we're going to discuss may have to be overrated as well. And the two that I'm really going to point out here potentially are the Minnesota Rokkr and the Seattle Surge, because the Rokkr this season, they've got a lot of big name players on this team. Let's not discount that. I'm sure they paid a fair bit of money, right, to get Priestahh, especially we thought, okay, maybe they paid him a lot of money to get him away from OpTic in Los Angeles, as it was at the time now Los Angeles Thieves. He could have potentially been the 4th on that squad instead of Temp. They've got Attach, MajorManiak, Priestahh, and Accuracy. I think a lot of people saw this team as a major upgrade from their previous roster, and I think they're expected to do good things, and maybe people have them around the top 6 range. But I'm somewhat yet to be convinced that is going to be the case. I think these meta shifts these last couple of weeks may have also negatively impacted this squad, right? Because with the AK-47 gone out of the game, you could say that we're going to have a more SMG AK-74U focused title from now going forward, with on some maps maybe even 3 SMGs come out. And as the game goes on, as the game progresses, we tend to see that SMGs become more dominant and prevalent over time, which could mean that, well, the assault rifles that this team kind of thrives in, right? Accuracy is obviously a pretty slow main assault rifle. MajorManiak has done good things with other weapons in the past, was very good with the Maddox in Black Ops 4, but is there really a similar gun in this game to the Maddox from previous titles? Maybe not. I mean, Attach and Priestahh as well are obviously phenomenal players in their own right, but there's no clear entry, super fast, aggressive, slaying SMG on this squad, and the pace of this team doesn't really seem to match up on paper to some of the other squads. So if we do have an SMG dominant meta, as it's possible that, okay, at least we have 2 AK-74s, if not 3 AK-74s on certain maps in this title, with 1 Krig, 2 Krigs, 1 Krig, 1 XM4 thrown into the mix in certain situations, then this squad may not be quite as good as it's geared up to be, but at the same time, I don't think people have like incredible expectations of this team, and therefore they're probably not actually that overrated. But the final team to mention here is a team that does have the potential to do an OpTic game in Los Angeles 2020, to do a Seattle Surge 2020, and that is probably Seattle Surge 2020 run, right? This squad also was considered to be a major upgrade on what they were able to pump out last season, but this season the questions are still there, right? You've got Gunless having internet issues we'll have a look at just in a second, second tier. But yeah, this team hasn't been looking so good in scrims. I think they lost like 0-7 in map count or something to Parasite's team the other day, of course, an amateur squad. And yes, these guys haven't scrimmed for a while. Loony's actually been looking pretty good, but the rest of the team has been very questionable right now, and especially given that, well, some of the top teams on the CDL side are, well, pulling away in terms of how good they're looking in scrims and dominating this type of stuff. Seattle Surge and Rokkr maybe were expected to be a top 6-ish team, and, you know, are they going to be there? I think it's difficult to argue right now, especially on current form. So if there is one team here that I think has the most potential to just fall off the pace and, well, do nothing compared to expectations, it might be Seattle Surge, right? And with Gunless here as well, the question has to be asked, like, if this team is going to explode, well, the pieces are there to let it happen. But maybe that will not be the case at all, as Gunless says, 4 more days I'll be in Atlanta, and my team will not be playing 3v4 every day. Wow, I cannot wait. So certainly some internet issues from Gunless these last several days, which is good to see, of course, him getting out of that situation, and hopefully this team, well, can improve significantly, but I can't be 100% confident that they will. And just a couple of quick things to mention as well. This from Huke: I am the nuke, Dark Ops matter complete. Pretty remarkable. Earn a nuclear medal with 21 different weapons, with all kills coming from that weapon, and well, Huke just knocks it out of the park, no problem at all. And the podcast is coming up very soon indeed, actually a little bit later tonight, starring OpTic Chicago's very own Dylan Envoy, so I think this will be an entertaining one for you guys to watch, and I'll probably end up talking about some clips from this in the coming days. You know the drill. Intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. Really helps out the YouTube algorithm to know you enjoy this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and help grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care, and I will see you next time.